Things are getting a little messy at this point, but I'm not so concerned. That's the way Locust stuff is. It's messy and it's beat up and it's cobbled together, so it's not a big deal about little floating pieces and spines not necessarily making total sense. It's kind of the overall grungy feel. Alright, so I've been working on it long enough and I finally had a good idea for the rear end of this thing. I actually watched an anime that had I think it was a ninja scroll, and it had that dude in it that has these, again, he had wasps in his back, and it was absolutely disgusting. So I figured, hey man, that is the grossest thing I've ever seen. So I decided it might work pretty well for my guy. All these little spongy, gross holes. I use a lot of reference from underthing that for this abdomen that really, it's funny when I hit something like this. I can't believe I didn't think of it sooner. It just takes time to come up with this stuff sometimes. That's part of the iteration process. I never imagine, even if I have a great picture in my mind's eye, which I rarely do, of how a concept should look, I never really go with what I first draw, at the very outset. I know that if I draw something and then set it aside for even 15, 20 minutes and come back and look at it, that I can probably come up with something better. I'd say 90% of the time that's usually the case. Now, it also means that, well, counterpoint that, I know that if I work on something too much, that I'm going to end up ruining it. There comes a point where if I'm working on something and I'm on my third or fourth iteration, at that point I'm usually what I call beating it into the ground. If I haven't got it at that point, it becomes not fun. It's not an enjoyable process for me to draw something or to rework an idea, umpteen million times. It starts to lose that passion, and you can tell in a concept when someone's had to do it too much. Usually I think the golden number is the second or third time you have to reiterate or change something. That's kind of where you're still interested in it, and you've practiced and you've thought about that subject matter long enough that you'll come up with something good. And I think that's important for design to realize, the guys doing design to realize. It's tough on a concept artist when a designer comes to them and says, we want a bad guy, but we have no idea what we want. You're just setting that concept artist up for frustration, and nothing good comes out of frustration. It behooves the whole process for the designer to sit down and really think about what he wants and get it down on paper, because that way the concept artist knows what he's working towards. He's not going to get frustrated because he's doing all this work and it's getting thrown out because the designer doesn't know yet what he wants. Keeping concept artists happy and not frustrated is very important. And I'm still messing with his head. It's not flowing correctly. Something about it now it looks like a kind of a gnome or something like that. It's not feeling right. And the reason I'm changing it is because I changed the abdomen. Once I got the abdomen perfect, that abdomen is exactly where I want it. Now the head doesn't look right. It's a constant go back and forth, and you can't be afraid to change something because it exactly, it exemplifies the creature that's named after it. The Corpser. When I heard Corpser first time, I was like, this is awesome. You know exactly what this thing does. There's no question. The Brumac, the Boomer. I'm still noodling away on this thing. So like I mentioned before, I'm probably putting a little bit more detail into this guy than I usually would, because I am doing it for this DVD and I have to kind of put my best foot forward on this thing. But usually I probably wouldn't go into this much detail. I'd be working more on just the profile. Something that's interesting about working on Gears of War, or any of the designs I do for video games, is I like to do this thing that's called coming up with a hook. And I think with every design should have one single determining factor, or a hook, something that makes that design iconic. The first character I worked on with Gears of War was Marcus Phoenix. At the time, he was just a soldier. So we knew that Marcus, or the design for Marcus, was going to exemplify the whole game, and we knew that when people looked at it, we wanted them to know exactly what game it came from, and relate to it, and we wanted it to stick with them. And I must have done probably 40 iterations of the cog armor before we came up with something that we thought was going to work. And I tried everything from samurai armor to Vietnam looking armor to Nazi Germany type armor, and nothing was working, because how many Space Marines have been done? It's umpteen million, and it was looking like everything that had been done before. So I was working on the cog, and I must have drawn his chest plate like 2 circles. And of course, with the Lancer, it was the chainsaw. That's the hook. With every vehicle or anything, there's one element that I like to have in there that sets it apart. That makes it different or unique, or when you look at it, your eye is drawn to that part. With this guy, the hook, with Locust stuff, the hook's always a little bit more difficult, because by design they're a little more busy, so it's kind of tough to get in a singular part that stands out from the rest of the detail that's going on. With this guy, I haven't come up with the hook yet in the sketch, and sometimes the hook doesn't come along until I could be 20 hours into it and I'm like, oh, this is it. But I'm already starting to kind of redo, and see, I hear I'm flipping back and forth, and I can obviously tell that my current version is better than the old one that I had. This guy, and as with a lot of Locust stuff, repetition of detail is always a kind of a good way to start. With this guy, he has these claw things on the end of his tentacles. Repeat the claws, little holes and vents. Repeat them as many times as possible, or not as possible. You have to balance it, but repeating things, common elements throughout the design, kind of leads your eye around it. If this guy was to have vents on one section and then have vents, on another section, I'd probably use the same shape for the vent on both sections, just so you're not looking at it and thinking of this thing as, it looks like he's designed, instead of having all these mishmash of different parts. So I'm getting close here. I'm getting close to something that might be a good sketch. I'm probably getting a little, I'm going to take it a little further here, because It is for this DVD. At this point, I'd probably be happy passing it off, but I love doing detail, especially when I start getting into something, which this guy, I'm really enjoying working on. So I'll start getting into the detail and I'll just lose myself. I'll get into this weird zone where I don't realize what I'm even doing. Scale could be the hook with this guy. If you're doing a giant creature, I think it's important that you remember that it's going to be huge, and it is a determining factor in your design how big. If you forego the scale of something, if you design a small creature the same way you design a creature that's 5 feet tall, and you use the same shapes and same relationship of shapes to each other, you're not going to be able to sell it. It's going to look like you went into 3D Studio Max and took something and just used the scale tool. So remembering scale is always really important, even this early on. Yeah, that's looking great, that profile. He's kind of floating up there on this turret arm of greebly evil bits. Bullets, I love doing rows of design and technology. For some reason, rows of bullets makes everything cool to me. You notice too, I kind of made this thing kind of brown. For some reason, they make fun of me at Epic because I make everything kind of brown or salmon color. I don't know why. It's just if it's gray, it doesn't appeal to me. So I don't know. Maybe I had a thing for brown paper bags when I was a kid. I don't know. I just like it brown and tan. So I'm just going to add some little details to kind of, again, doing the used car salesman. I'm going to polish it up a little bit so that it's a little more palpable. So that the first time, you want that impact. The first time you email this off to the leads, you want them to open it up and be like, oh wow, what's this? So a little wispy smoke, add some little highlights and shines where I'm not too concerned with lighting or anything like that. I'm just giving a little impact. So, as we kind of do a little color balance to kind of make it appear as if it's not just a straight, 2-color drawing. Kind of pull out, make it look a little more organic with a kind of a hue shift here. But even and compared to the old one I did, the old one can just delete it now. A couple more spikes. See, never enough spikes. Spikes and chains and tubes and the locust stuff always has to have the little locust insignias on it, which is a great little insignia. I'll talk more about the locust tech as we move along here. Little smoke coming out to show that this thing has an internal workings. Maybe it's some coal burning machine gun turret. That's pretty evil. Compare it to the old Reaver. It's looking pretty good. It looks like it's bigger than the old Reaver, definitely. It looks like it gave birth to the old Reaver. This is the Mama Reaver. And that's the old one. Whew. Yeah, see, it was good that I kept going and tossed that one out. So